I know we've still got a long ways to go until the football season starts, but I believe that the Nebraska Cornhuskers are due for a massive year three under Matt Rule and company. This was a team last year that made major strides, going 7-6, winning a bowl game, making their first bowl game since 2016. And we all know Matt Rule, we all know the pedigree that he has when he comes to college football programs. His ability to turn them around in year three is the sweet spot for him. And that is now the year that Nebraska is approaching with Matt Rule. When he was at Temple in year one, they went an abysmal 2-10, but by year three came around, they were 10-4. He would then level up going to Baylor. In year one, they were only 1-11. They only won one football game, and by year three, they were 11-3 and would make it all the way to the Sugar Bowl. And we look at Matt Rule over these last 2 years. It felt like in year one, there should have been a lot more wins. It was the same old story for the Cornhuskers, a lot of one-score losses, but they would go 5-7, but they would be right there. They would be right at the doorstep of making a bowl game, but they would finally get over this hump, breaking the streak since 2016, going 7-6. They would beat Boston College in the Pinstripe Bowl. But here we are approaching year three under Matt Rule. In year one, it was 5-7. What will this year look like for the Cornhuskers? I have very high hopes for this team, and it starts with the quarterback. It starts with this offense. And I had really high hopes for this Nebraska team last year. They were returning one of the best defenses in all of college football, and they were also getting a five-star quarterback, true freshman that was an unbelievable talent in high school, and I thought this team could win 9 or 10 ball games. They would only go on to win 7 games, but I think they showed some great signs, and in specific, Dylan Raiola can really take the next step this year. We can all agree that the Nebraska offense was stagnant last year. The defense was up and down, but the offense really was stagnant all season long, and that's why Nebraska, at the end of the year, made this transition, hired Dana Holgorsen. He would then replace Marcus Satterfield and take over in the final 4 games of the season, the last 3 regular season games, and then that bowl game. And I felt that Dylan Raiola made the best strides at the end of the year than he did all season long. And of course, that's going to be evident when you get towards the end of the season. He's going to be more comfortable. He's going to have better reps underneath him. But I felt like with what Dana Holgorsen brought to this offense, Dylan Raiola put his best foot forward. And that's what I believe we're going to see this year. They're also returning back Emmett Johnson in this backfield. So they now have Dylan Raiola, who's approaching year 2, who put together some really good tape at the end of the regular season. They have this win to build some momentum. The key word for this Nebraska team and Matt Rule is momentum. They have 2 years of good momentum, breaking this streak, winning a bowl game, getting back to a bowl game for the first time since 2016. How can they continue this momentum now with Dylan Raiola in year 2? They also have Emmett Johnson. Another big time reason that this offense was stagnant was due to the receiver position. In my personal opinion, they did not have enough guys that could win off the line of scrimmage. They had some great jump ball receivers in Isaiah Nayor, but at the end of the day, they didn't have enough guys that could truly create separation off the line of scrimmage. But now they do. They picked up some big time players in the portal, in specific at the receiver position. And the first guy that they brought in is Dane Key out of Kentucky. ESPN ranks him as the 12th best overall transfer player in college football. He has 1 year remaining, but he was a stud at Kentucky. He racked up in a 3-year career 126 receptions, nearly 2,000 receiving yards, and 14 touchdowns. And this is a guy that, in going to Nebraska, has a big time opportunity with Dylan Raiola to significantly increase his draft stock. And this is a guy that I'm looking at as somebody that can win off the line of scrimmage and somebody that can really be Dylan Raiola's best friend over the middle of the field. I'm really excited to see how Dane Key can thrive in this Nebraska offense. Another guy that Nebraska's bringing in is Nazai Hunter. He was ranked as the 77th best overall transfer portal player. According to ESPN, he is now transferring to Nebraska out of Cal Berkeley. He redshirted in 2023, but he was Fernando Mendoza's #1 receiver last year when he started. 59 targets, 40 catches for nearly under 600 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. But I think he is going to be a guy that could see some significant production in this offense, and he is already the projected starter next to Dane Key. And you also put him next to a receiver that was really good last year, also as a true freshman, in Ja'Cory Barney. I'm really excited about him. Him and Dylan Raiola were both true freshmen last year, but Ja'Cory Barney is this smaller receiver, but he is a burner. He can get down the field in a heartbeat, but Nebraska loves to use him in these jet option plays. He is a guy that really rounds out this receiving core well. You have your experienced receiver in Dane Key who can win off the line of scrimmage. You have your Nazir Hunter who can really help also win off the line of scrimmage. And Nebraska's bringing back Ja'Cory Barney, a guy that was highly touted coming out of high school, a guy that can take the top off a defense. I'm really excited about this receiving core for Dylan. I couldn't say that last year, and I couldn't say that about the play calling. And you could tell that the main focus for this Nebraska football team was to build around Dylan Raiola. They got the play caller, they got the receiving core, but they've also done a great job of building up this offensive line for Dylan. They first of all went out and got Rocco Spindler out of Notre Dame, a good offensive guard, a guy with experience who is a redshirt junior who now can help next to Dylan in this offensive line. They also picked up Elijah Pritchett, a guy out of Alabama who was very highly recruited when he was in the portal, when he was in high school, a guy that can really help shore up this offensive line, but can also help at the tackle position. I think that Matt Rule and company did a great job of filling out this roster on the offensive side of the ball because it was a big time struggle last year. It was a big time struggle, and it seems like it is going to take a big time step forward this year. And that's what Dylan Raiola is ready to do. He showed flashes last year. Everyone compares him to Patrick Mahomes, but the dude has legit arm talent and he can make any throw on the football field. In terms of his development, I would love to see him take another step in terms of his mobility. We all know that he is going to be a draft caliber quarterback, but if Dylan Raiola is going to take that next step, it starts with the mobility, and they've talked about that this offseason. They've talked about him cutting down some of that weight, which he's already done, but him being more mobile in the pocket when he gets that initial rush, when he gets that initial pressure, being able to stay alive, because you see that with a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL. You don't have to run a 4.4, you don't have to run a 4.5, or you don't even have to be able to hurdle defenders like Josh Allen, but you have to be able to navigate the pocket and stay alive. Matthew Stafford, who is his godparent, does such a great job of that at his older age. That's what Dylan Raiola has to do a better job of this coming season, and I think he's ready to do so because he has all the talent in the world, and he is going to take a big-time step this year along with the offense. Now, the next major question that I have about this team is how is this defense going to look? They lost a lot of guys that were seniors that graduated, guys that went to the draft. They also lost their defensive coordinator in Tony White, who elected to take the defensive coordinator job at Florida State. Kind of a surprise to a lot of people, but Nebraska would then promote its secondary coach in John Butler to now be the current defensive coordinator. Excited to see how he is going to navigate this defense, how he is going to continue to have this defense at a high level, because the defense was really good over the past few seasons. It wasn't elite last year like it was 2 years ago in Matt Rule's first year. That's why Tony White would get that contract extension, but then he left this past offseason. But this defense has been really good in the Matt Rule era, so I'm curious to see how John Butler is going to have this defense ready to go. But I think Nebraska is ready to take another leap. I think they're ready to take this year 3 stride under Matt Rule. The win total is set for this team at 7.5. And when you look at the schedule, it's not as tough as most Big Ten schedules, in my opinion. Yes, they're going to have some tough games because the Big Ten is a very rigorous conference, but Nebraska has the talent. They're going to take this next step. The quarterback position is going to be a major exclamation point. It's not a question mark like it was in year 1. It was a period last year, and now it's an exclamation point. I'm ready to see how Dylan Raiola thrives. But you look at this schedule. The non-conference is not bad at all. Week 1, they're going to be under the lights on ESPN and Arrowhead Stadium against Cincinnati. That should be a win. They should also take care of business against Akron and Houston Christian. So that should be 3-0 before they start conference play. Week 4, they're going to take on Michigan. This should be a fun game. They're at home, Michigan. We all know the momentum that they're rolling into the season with as well. They get this number 1 player in the country in Bryce Underwood, who is an absolute dog at the quarterback position because they didn't have a surefire quarterback last year, but they have an immense amount of momentum beating Ohio State, winning the bowl game. Michigan is going to be a formidable opponent next year, but I think Nebraska can definitely win this game. It's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. Michigan State, I think they should be able to take care of business on this one as well. Now, this is kind of wild. They'll finally go on the road week 6. Their first 5 games are all home games, even though week 1 they'll be in Arrowhead Stadium, which is the Chiefs Stadium. But week 6, they'll finally go on the road for the first time. I'm looking at the schedule right now. They only have 4 road games, which is pretty wild, but they'll go on the road for the first time at Maryland, which I think is a very winnable game. Maryland was only 4-8 last year. Nebraska should be able to get this one done. Then they'll go on the road against Minnesota. Again, Minnesota should be a very winnable game for the Cornhuskers. Then they'll take on Northwestern at home. They should be able to win this one. USC, I'm curious to see how Jordan Mailata and Lincoln Riley are able to bounce back. I feel like Lincoln might have his seat heat up a little bit. I think this is an interesting situation for the Trojans. I'm curious to see how he bounces back. Then they'll go on the road against UCLA, a team that came into Lincoln last year and beat the Cornhuskers. Curious to see how Nico I is able to really reignite his career at UCLA since transferring from Tennessee. That was a big drama. Then they'll go on the road against Penn State. I think Penn State is going to be a buzzsaw next year with Drew Aller returning, who could potentially be the number 1 overall pick. This is going to be a really tough game against the Nittany Lions. Then the last week of the season, of course, they will play the Iowa Hawkeyes. I cannot believe they lost to them last year. But overall, when I look at this Nebraska schedule, I think the only definitive loss that I see is Penn State. That's going to be a tough one, but I think this Nebraska team can legitimately compete with every other team. Michigan's going to be tough. Sure. USC is going to be tough. Sure. But they have both of those games at home. Going on the road against UCLA, I'm curious to see how that team does, but I think this is a winnable game for Nebraska. And of course, Iowa is always a coin flip. But when I look at this schedule, I think Nebraska should be able, at its ceiling, should be able to win 10 games. I think this is a 10-win team at its ceiling. Its floor should be no lower than 8 games. This is a team that has now fully had Matt Rule instill his culture into it. Dylan Raiola is now going to be a sophomore. He has no more excuses, in my opinion. The receiving core is shored up. They have an offensive line that is going to protect him. I think Dylan Raiola is going to have a monster season along with the offense as a whole. I think this defense is the only thing that has a question mark next to it, but I believe in John Butler and Matt Rule to shore things up there, and they have some guys returning that have some experience. But overall, I think this Nebraska team is going to go 9-3 next year. As I look at the schedule, if they go 10-2, if they win some of these games that they're supposed to, I think that they could find themselves in the college football playoffs, very similarly to Indiana last year, who only lost 2 games, who went 10-2 under Kurt Cignetti. This Nebraska team, if they go 10-2, they could absolutely wind up in the college football playoff, but I'm very excited to see what the Cornhuskers can do in year 3 under Matt Rule. I'm Caden Kubler, and thank you guys so much for watching.